as near as I can tell, and when I say as near as I can tell, I basically mean off the top of my head, and I did zero research on the topic. Episode 943 of Diz Runs Radio is a quick tip episode. Today's quick tip, crowdsourcing advice from other runners. So today, talking about crowdsourcing advice, specifically, maybe specifically on social media. And, the fact of the matter is social media, it's one of those, blessing and curse scenarios. Like, there's a lot to love about social media, but boy, there's a lot to not love about social media. And I find myself somewhere in the middle. Like there's some days that I love it, some days that I really have a strong disdain for it. And something that I noticed recently, not so much in running groups that I'm in, although I've noticed it in running groups before, even in our Facebook group, I've seen it there as well, where people ask for advice. They have a question, something they're struggling with, and there's this like barrage of information that comes in from all the people in the group, or it happens on Twitter, it happens on anywhere on social media, it happens. And I noticed in one particular group where I kind of know the guy who asked the question a little bit, and he was getting some great advice, but so much of it just didn't pertain to him. At least I don't think. From what I know of him, I mean, not that I know him super, super well, but from what I know, the basic situation is a podcasting group. Hey, I've got 2 shows. I'm not sure which one to go with. Trying to make a little bit of money off of it as well. And, there's a lot of good advice about kind of focusing here and trying to do this and that. And then one guy was like, man, you should, take all the money that you make and reinvest it and buy ads and yada, yada, yada. And it was just like, whoa, buddy. Like, that probably works for that guy. But if you don't have the money to be buying a bunch of ads and paying people to do all kinds of production work and having a team and all these types of things, like, great advice, pretty much useless. And when I saw that, I was like, dang, that's a lot of what I see in some running groups as well. And again, in our group on occasion. And I don't think anybody does it in malice, but it's just something to kind of keep in mind when you turn to social media to ask questions, to get advice. Because in theory, social media should make this awesome. Because as near as I can tell, and when I say as near as I can tell, I basically mean off the top of my head, and I did zero research on the topic. But as near as I can tell, as long as there's been people, one of the best ways that we've learned is by asking other people for advice, right? Like, I'm sure, and again, zero research about this, but I'm sure that like the first time that some ancient human, whether we came out of the trees or out of the garden, whichever way, doesn't really matter, one way or the other, some ancient human, like when they first stumbled upon fire by accident, whether it's from rubbing 2 sticks together, a little bit of lightning, something, we got fire. And was like, oh, this is some good stuff, whether it's for cooking, for keeping pests away, keeping predatorial animals away, whatever it is, like, wow, this is awesome. And then, somewhere at the watering hole, somebody else came up and was like, dude, that fire, what's that all about? Oh, let me tell you, rub these sticks together or, stand out and try to get some lightning to strike, and it's a game changer. So that person went back and rubbed their sticks together, or lightning struck, and wow, now we've got fire. And so on and so forth. Clearly lots of inventions, lots of brain, great ideas that have come up through the times, but there has to, I can't believe that we just recently started asking others for advice. The difference is, I think at least, the difference in now, in 2021, and even in the last decade, in the internet era, versus 50 years ago. 50 years ago, you went to the coffee shop or you went to the bar and you were talking to, and you had like real relationships with people. Not that social media relationships aren't necessarily real, but you'll see where I'm going with this. You knew each other. There was relationships at church. It was relationships at the town hall. It was relationships that were more than just, hey, we're all runners, right? And so when you'd ask somebody a question, A, you knew that they knew what they were talking about, because if you were starting to raise some chickens, like you ask the guy in town who has all the chickens and the eggs, like, hey, what do the chickens eat like to eat the best, or what's the best way to keep the predators at bay? He knows what he's talking about. And he knows the specifics of this area. You know, you're not living in Florida and asking the chicken farmer in Alaska how to make sure that the chicken coop doesn't get too hot, right? Like you're asking appropriate questions to people that know what they're talking about in your area. Social media, one of the great things about it is that our area is a lot bigger than just our zip code or our area code, right? I mean, y'all are listening to this right now, and I'm in Florida, and you're in insert state here, insert country here. I mean, we've got folks all around the world that listen to the show, which is awesome. But one thing that I try to do when I'm giving advice, whether it's a quick tip, answering a question on Q&A, on social media, whatever, is I try to keep in mind that my situation doesn't necessarily mirror the situation of the person asking. Sometimes I do better than others at that, I'll admit. Sometimes I forget that I'm just an N equals 1, and I'm just trying to figure it out myself, and what works for me may not work for you. But what I tend to see on social media, and this is in podcasting groups, this is in entrepreneur groups, this is in running groups, I'm sure it's in stay-at-home mom groups, I'm sure it's in any group, or any hashtag, or any subsection of social media. It's that somebody asks a question, and not everybody, lots of people chime in and go, oh, I know how to do that. I know how to help with that situation from their own perspective. And that's where asking for advice on social media gets tricky, because you're going to get a lot of information. And I think in just about every case, although there's probably one here and there, but in just about every case, the people that are replying to your question, that are offering advice, they mean well. They're trying to help. They're giving you the tactics, the tips, the advice that has worked for them. But as our late friend Stephen Lee said on the podcast back, I don't remember what it was, several years ago, and I know he was paraphrasing somebody else, so I'm paraphrasing a paraphrase. But it was the reminder that all the advice you get, especially all the advice you get on the internet and on social media, is simultaneously 100% truth and 100% BS. Because in almost every situation, I'm sharing, if you're asking me a question, and especially if I'm not answering with my coach's hat on, if I'm just answering as Diz the runner, I'm answering as, this is what has helped me, this is what has worked for me. It'll probably work for you. It may work for you. But it's 100% truth that I'm sharing, right? But it's 100% my truth, and it may be 100% BS to you in your situation. And so the more broadly we cast our net when it comes to crowdsourcing, aka the bigger the following on social media, or the more people that respond, the more people that see your question and try to help, the more likely you'll get great advice while also getting a whole bunch of BS that doesn't apply to you. Versus if you go more narrow, if you have a coach, and this isn't some plug for me to be your coach, although I guess maybe I just turned it into one. But if you have a coach, there's that working relationship. The coach knows you a lot better. Hopefully, if you've been with them for a while, there's a bit of kind of thinking with the same brain going on, and y'all are on the same page. And you ask that question, and it's a lot. It's very unlikely that it's BS. But even if if you have a handful of people that you run with on a regular basis, your running crew, all right, they are going to know you, know your situation, know your specifics, and when they offer their advice, they're offering it through the lens of, I know you, and I think this is what would help you. Maybe it's your local running club. Same thing. They may not know you quite as well, the 20 people that meet for the group runs once again, when we're hopefully getting to be able to do that now, if not soon. They know you pretty well. They certainly know you as a runner pretty well. So their advice may not be laser specific to you, but it's pretty good because they know you, and they know the local area. They know kind of what your running is like. So ultimately, as I'm probably belaboring the point, but, What else is new? When it comes to crowdsourcing advice on the internet, asking questions, I'm not against it. I'm not telling you not to. I'm just saying that you need to be mindful and aware that while probably everybody who's answering your question is legitimately trying to help, some of their answers are as useless as it gets for you in your situation. You know? Take in the advice. Listen to it. But have a filter in place. You know, if I'm asking Meb for advice on how to be a better runner, all right, he's going to tell me some great things, right? Some great tips that probably work great for elite runners. In theory, they might work for all runners, all right? But I need to filter out the stuff that doesn't work for the elites only, right? If it's sleep 10 hours a night and take a 2-hour nap every day, which is sound advice for an elite athlete training at high volume, doing lots of great, hard workouts, like that's important. If it's, get an hour of PT every day and get 2 massages a week, all those great advice. Not stuff that's working for me right now. I wish I had time to sleep 10 hours a night and take a 2-hour nap and do all the work and log all the miles. And, oh, by the way, still be a decent dad and a husband and try to be a decent coach and try to yammer on a podcast a couple times a week and do all the other things, like write a book, right? Like that just doesn't work for me. Likewise, when you ask a question and some yutz with a podcast gives you an answer, or my people in the group give you an answer, or random people on social media give you an answer, recognize that they're trying to help, but also be willing to filter out the stuff that just doesn't apply to you where you are right now as a runner or as a whatever questions you're answering. So just something to keep in mind. Ask the questions, but realize that the broader the audience, the more likely there's a bunch of BS answers that are truth, that are legit truth to certain people. They just don't apply to you. All right? So hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully that doesn't mean that this month's Q&A episode is going to have 3 questions because people don't want to ask anything because they feel like I'm speaking gibberish in the answers, which I'm probably speaking gibberish in the answers. Like, let's not kid ourselves. But, I'm doing my best. I promise you I'm doing my best. But something to think about when you're crowdsourcing questions about races to run or shoes to wear or ways to avoid injury or ways to come back from injury or what to eat or all those types of things. Just take the answers, take the information, but wade through it a little bit. All right. So that's the quick tip for today. That's not super quick, but it's not super long either. Kind of nice, somewhere in the middle there. What do you think? What kind of help have you gotten online, or what kind of just bombs of ideas, nonsense ideas have you gotten, or somewhere in the middle? Let me know. At DizRuns on Twitter, at DizRuns on Instagram. You can also send an email to dizruns@gmail.com. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, cheers, hat tip. You can leave a comment on YouTube because the quick tips are on YouTube. And you can also head over to the show notes for today, where I think I did a halfway decent job on the meme and GIF front, dizruns.com/943. And you can scroll down past all the nonsense, and there's a few links. Link back to the conversation with Steven where he paraphrased, where I'm paraphrasing his paraphrase of a quote. Hope that all made sense. There's a couple other links in there as well. But there's also that comment section down at the bottom. You can leave your thoughts and feedbacks, comments, and takeaways there as well. And let me know what you think about crowdsourcing advice, how that works for you. And you can fact check me on my historical references as well, if you're so inclined. All right. Y'all, thanks for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that share button. Spread the word around. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you want to support the show in even a bigger way than liking and subscribing, you can support the show via Patreon. Patreon.com/DizRuns. Always appreciated. Never expected. And until next time, y'all, please be well. Take good care. Thanks again for listening. And we'll talk soon, all right? See you.